It started on an ordinary Sunday, the kind of day when the sun warms the windows and you almost believe nothing bad can happen. My father sent a simple message: dinner at 5. Be here on time. I thought it would be like any other family gathering. Mom's pasta on the table, laughter echoing through the kitchen, maybe some talk about my sister's wedding or my brother's new job. But when I opened the front door, something felt wrong. There was no smell of food, no music, just silence. My parents and siblings were already seated in the living room, waiting. My dad didn't hug me. He didn't even smile. "You're late," he said flatly. I laughed nervously, trying to brush it off. Traffic, you know how it is. But no one laughed. My mother stared at her folded hands. My brother leaned back with a smirk, like he already knew the ending of a story I hadn't even heard. My sister looked away, her jaw tight, rehearsed. Finally, my father spoke. "We need to talk. Sit down." The words dropped heavy in the air. I sat on the edge of the chair near the window. My heart was already pounding, though I didn't know why. Then the accusations began. "You've been stealing money," my brother said, "from Mom and Dad's account." He pushed papers across the table, statements with circles and highlights. I blinked, confused, shaking my head. "That's not true, I didn't—" But my father raised his hand to silence me, and then my sister's voice cut through the room. "She's been seeing a married man. She even tried to sleep with my fiancé." Her words sliced me open. I looked at her, at all of them. "You think I would ever—" My voice cracked, but no one moved. No one asked for my side. Finally, my mother whispered, still looking down, "You've changed. We don't recognize you anymore." The room spun. This wasn't my family. It felt like a trial where the verdict had already been decided. Then my father delivered the final blow. "We've made a decision. We're removing you from the family trust, and we think it's best you leave tonight." Leave. Tonight. I looked around the house. The photos on the wall, the fireplace where I used to curl up with books, all the small pieces of a home I thought was mine. But their faces told me the truth. I didn't belong here anymore. "You have 1 hour," my brother added coldly. My sister smirked. "We already packed a bag. It's in the hallway." My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. I walked past them, past my mother, who still wouldn't look at me, past my siblings, who looked almost proud. In the garage, I saw my father tossing something into the trash. It was my photo album, my childhood reduced to garbage. "Seriously?" I asked, my voice breaking. He only shrugged. "Figured you wouldn't need it where you're going." I didn't cry. Not then. I walked out with shaking hands, got into my car, and drove away. That night, I had no family, no home, no place in the world, just silence, and the sound of my own heart breaking. The motel room was small. The curtains didn't close all the way. The air conditioner rattled like it was trying to break free from the wall. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. No tears came, just silence. The kind of silence that makes you wonder if the world has already forgotten you. I pressed my hands against my face, but the ache in my chest didn't go away. It followed me like a shadow. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. I couldn't tell. All I knew was that I had nowhere to go, no one to call. And then I felt it, a pull deep in my stomach. Not pain exactly, more like a weight I hadn't noticed before. I froze. I counted the weeks in my head. My breath caught. I grabbed my bag, walked to the gas station 2 blocks away, and bought a test. Back in the bathroom, under yellow light, I waited. Seconds turned into forever, until 2 pink lines appeared. Positive. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared into the mirror at my own reflection. Pregnant. My lips trembled. But then, for the first time in days, words came out of my mouth. "You're not alone," I whispered. I placed a hand over my stomach. "You're the only truth they can't erase." The world outside was still harsh. The neon vacancy sign buzzed faintly. Cars rushed by, their headlights slicing the night. But inside that room, something shifted. I was no longer just a daughter thrown away. I was a mother, carrying 2 lives the world didn't know about. The fear was still there. How would I survive? How would I feed them? Where would we go? But beneath the fear, something else was growing. Hope. A fragile hope, yes, but enough to make my lungs breathe again. I pulled out my old diary. It had been hidden for years, pages bent, cover worn. As I turned through the entries, I saw pieces of myself I had forgotten, dreams I once had, strength I once carried. And in that moment, I made a silent promise. This time, I wouldn't let anyone erase me. Not my brother, not my sister, not even my parents. Because now, I wasn't fighting just for myself. I was fighting for the 2 tiny heartbeats inside me. And for the first time that night, I felt something stronger than despair. I felt a reason to live. The motel walls were closing in. The buzzing neon outside felt louder than my own heartbeat. I sat with the test still on the table, hands pressed over my stomach, whispering promises I didn't know how to keep. Then my phone lit up. A message, an unsaved number. I'm coming to Tucson. If it's true, you're not alone. I froze. My lips parted, but no sound came out. It was Camden, the one man my family had sworn would never stay, the man they said would leave the second things got hard, but here he was, coming back. Minutes felt like hours, until there was a knock on the door, 3 soft taps, steady, familiar. I opened it, and there he stood, Camden. He looked tired, like he'd been carrying battles of his own, but his eyes were gentle. You okay? He asked quietly. I wanted to say yes, but the truth caught in my throat. Instead, I stepped aside, and he walked in. There were no grand gestures, no tears or hugs. He just sat in the chair by the window. I sat on the edge of the bed. Silence stretched between us, but it wasn't empty. It was full of everything unspoken, everything heavy. Finally, I whispered, I didn't expect you to come. He didn't answer right away. His eyes drifted to the table where the pregnancy test still lay. He didn't flinch. He didn't judge. He just said, Want to get out of here for a bit? So we did. We drove in his old truck, the kind that rattled just enough to make conversation easy to delay. He parked outside a small diner, the kind where no one cares who you are as long as you pay in cash. We sat in a booth by the window. He ordered 2 coffees, both black. No questions, no menu, just presence. When the cups arrived, I blurted it out. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air. I expected shock. I expected panic. But Camden didn't blink. Instead, he pulled a napkin from the holder, scribbled one word, and slid it across the table. Together. My breath caught. I stared at the word as if it were written in gold. Together. He leaned forward. I don't want to run. Not from this. Not from you. Tears burned at the corners of my eyes, but I held them back. You don't know what you're signing up for, I whispered. Maybe not, he said, but I know what I walked away from before. I'm not making that mistake again. Something cracked open inside me. For days, I had carried only betrayal, rejection, and fear. But now, across from me, was someone who saw me. Not the lies, not the shame. Me. And in that tiny diner with the smell of old coffee and fried eggs in the air, I felt the first flicker of safety return. Not because my problems were solved, not because the road ahead would be easy, but because I wasn't walking it alone anymore. Camden's apartment was small. 2 rooms, bare walls, a coffee maker that hissed louder than it brewed. But to me, it felt like a palace. For the first time in weeks, I woke up without flinching. No shouting voices, no cold stares, just sunlight through the blinds and the quiet sound of someone choosing to stay. Still, the fear lingered. How could I raise children with nothing? How could I build a life when my own family had erased me? The answer came from a place I thought I'd lost. My mind, my work. The research I had once buried under shame. Late nights in the public library, I opened dusty books and logged into old computers. I dug through grant programs, legal paperwork, and scientific journals. I sketched out the idea that had once been stolen from me, the project my brother had claimed as his own. This time, it would bear my name. Camden never hovered. He never tried to take control. He simply made sure I ate, brought me pens when mine ran out, and sometimes sat quietly in the corner, reading while I scribbled ideas. It was a quiet kind of love, not loud, not dramatic, but steady. And in that steadiness, I found the strength to keep going. I filed the papers for a company. Sawline Bio, a name that meant lineage, but this time the line would begin with me. Pregnancy made the work harder. Morning sickness didn't care about business plans. Exhaustion didn't pause when I had deadlines. But each wave of nausea, each sleepless night reminded me, I wasn't just building a company, I was building a future. The world, of course, didn't make it easy. At my first pitch event, an investor with silver hair and a tailored suit leaned back after my presentation. His smile was sharp, but his words cut deeper. Impressive idea, but we've already had our fill of single, pregnant founders trying to prove a point. The room didn't laugh, but no one defended me either. I nodded, held my ground, and walked out. Tears burned at the back of my throat, but I refused to let them fall. Outside, I pressed a hand against my belly. "Keep walking," I whispered. For them. For me. There were moments I nearly gave up. Moments when the rejection letters piled higher than the hopes I'd written down. Moments when I bent over a trash can, sick and shaking, while strangers muttered cruel words under their breath. But then I'd open my wallet and see a photo. Me and my grandmother, smiling in a world that had not yet broken me. Her hand slipping something into mine. A ring she promised would be mine. She saw me, even when no one else did. And with that memory, I found the fire to keep moving. Piece by piece, the company grew. Small steps, tiny wins. One investor who believed, one clinic that listened. Camden celebrated every victory, no matter how small, not with champagne or parties, but with quiet pride. A takeout dinner, a gentle smile, a whispered, "I knew you could do it." I wasn't the same woman my family had thrown away. I was no longer just surviving. I was rebuilding, brick by brick, dream by dream. And every time I looked at the swelling curve of my stomach, I knew. I wasn't just carrying children. I was carrying proof that erasure is never the end. It is only the beginning of something new. It began with a banner, 10 feet tall, silk, perfectly lit. At the entrance of a medical conference stood my sister's face, her arms folded, her eyes lowered, just enough to look humble. Beneath her image were words taken directly from my thesis, my research, my life's work, but without my name. I stood frozen, the crowd moving around me, the letters blurred, not from distance, not from poor light, but from rage. For a moment, I thought I couldn't breathe. Not again, not another theft. But then, the microphone inside the hall called my name. "Dr. Narina Sloan, please come forward." I walked past that banner without touching it, without tearing it down. I didn't need to. I would tear it down another way. On stage, the room hushed. My hands shook, but I gripped the remote. Slide 1, the data. Slide 2, the science. Slide 3, a photograph of my own hands cradling my belly, a note taped to the mirror behind me. "You're not invisible. They just can't see what you're building yet." My voice was steady. "I wasn't invited to this panel," I said, "but I built the science you're funding, not with a dynasty, not with a PR team, but with a body no one believed could lead, and a voice my family tried to erase." Silence. Not rejection, not applause, just silence. And in silence, sometimes, lies the sound of truth. Camden recorded every word. By the time I stepped off the stage, my words had already spread online. The right twin built it. That hashtag lit like wildfire. But my sister did not stay silent for long. The next day, I found my car spray-painted. Backstabber, trash mom. An envelope waited beneath the wiper. Inside, a cease and desist letter, signed by her hand, accusing me of defamation, threatening to sue. Camden's fists curled in anger. "Let's call the police," he said. But I didn't answer. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, thicker than hers, heavier. Inside, time-stamped emails, lab notes, mentorship logs, all of it proof that she had stolen from me. I smiled, soft but sharp. "Let her try," I whispered, and so we went to court. The courthouse smelled of dust and paper. The benches squeaked when people shifted. Reporters hovered outside like vultures waiting for blood. I wore a navy blazer, the one my mother once said made me look too masculine. She was right. It wasn't feminine. It was formidable. My lawyer, a woman with steel in her voice, stood beside me. The judge entered, gaze sharp, expression unreadable. "Your Honor," my lawyer began, "we are not here for family drama. We are here for truth, for intellectual property stolen, and a woman erased from her own work." Then came the recordings, voices from my childhood home, captured without anyone knowing. My mother, my sister, my aunt, talking about how to cut me out, how to silence me, how to erase me. I didn't cry, I didn't flinch. I just stood tall, letting their own words betray them. The judge listened, eyes narrowing. Finally, she spoke. "Until this matter is fully resolved, I am granting a temporary injunction. Ms. Zenia Sloan is barred from representing or profiting from Phoenix Biotech or any related work authored by the plaintiff." Gasps filled the courtroom. Not applause, not cheers, but justice rarely arrives with noise. Sometimes it arrives with silence. As people filed out, I glanced across the room. My parents sat still. My father stared at his folded hands. My mother's eyes were glassy but empty. They did not move. They did not follow my sister. For the first time, she stood alone. Outside, reporters swarmed. "Miss Sloan," one called out, "do you have anything to say to your family?" I paused. The sun was bright on my face, the air dry in my lungs. "No," I said. "I already did. In court." The court battle was over. Not completely, but enough. The injunction was mine. The truth was mine. For the first time in years, my name was mine again. But justice in a courtroom isn't the same as peace in your soul. That part took time. Camden and I moved into a small house on the edge of Phoenix. Nothing grand. White stucco walls. A narrow strip of earth in the back where weeds used to grow. The twins were born, Leo and Leora. Tiny, fragile, perfect. Their cries filled the rooms that had once been silent. One morning, we dug into the soil behind the house. 2 saplings, 1 orange, 1 lemon. The twins patted the dirt with their small hands. "Mommy, this one's mine," Leora whispered, wiping her brow like a little farmer. Leo nodded seriously, as if the roots themselves depended on him. It was such a small thing, but watching them plant life into the ground, we now called ours. I felt my lungs stretch wider than they had in years. Then came a package, no name, no return address. Inside, a photograph. It was the picture from my childhood, the one where I'd been cropped out, erased, forgotten. But this time, I was there, smiling in a hand-sewn blue dress my grandmother made, whole. On the back, written in neat pen, "This is the version that matters." I held it with trembling hands. For years I had fought to be seen. Now here I was, not erased, not forgotten, seen. Later that day, Camden hung a wooden swing under the pergola. The twins laughed as they took turns, their voices rising like music. I sat with lemonade in hand, watching them chase butterflies. The sunlight touched my face, warm and gentle. Camden looked at me. "Are you okay now?" he asked softly. I didn't answer right away. I looked at the trees, the swing, the tiny shoes left by the garden. I looked at my own hands, stronger now, lined from work, steady. Finally, I whispered, I'm not just okay. I'm exactly who I was meant to be. And in that moment, surrounded by love I had built from ashes, I realized something. They erased me once, but I didn't fight to be remembered. I built something too real to ignore.